to talk about Gluttony Sin 6, which in job search related uh, perspective is about not overloading your CV, which you shouldn't do, right? So the sin is people who overload their CV with all of the information, everything they've always done or they've ever done in that CV every freaking time. Do not do that. In case you don't know, my name is Diana Lund Nostrom, and I am a career consultant helping people with an academic level education find jobs in Denmark. I help teach you how to find jobs in Denmark. That's a better way of saying that. So if you're looking, feel free to reach out, comment, whatever you make sense to you. So in terms of this whole overloading your CV, so first rule of thumb in Denmark basically is that your CV shouldn't be more than max 3 pages long, unless you're at like C-level positions, and it might be a bit more, depending on your experience, but 3 pages, preferably 2. So for that alone, you can't put everything usually in your CV, right? So when you write your CV, it's all about having a CV that is tailored, where you only put in what really matters. So actually looking at all of the old positions you've had and be like, what matters? What is it from my previous jobs that matter to the company, the position that I'm applying for now? And that is what needs to be in your CV. So yes, that means that there is no like static CV that you just send out to everyone. There's a CV that is focused for that specific position. And also, please, 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 please don't create one-page CVs for posted positions, because that gives you the exact opposite problem, which is that you're going to leave out information that is relevant and important. So basically, when we're looking at a really, really good CV for the Danish job market, it's a CV that is preferably 2 pages and actually also has a photo. I know it's not super common, but a lot of the time, Danish companies, unless they specifically ask you not to, actually like that you have a photo on your CV. But 2 pages, and then remember to make it an easy read. So it needs to be skimmable. It needs to be something that you basically, first glance, the recruiter is maybe spending 7 seconds to give you a quick glance, or tops like 30 seconds for the first read through, and then you get in a yes or no pile, and then they go and look at the yes pile later and dive even more into it, right? 97% of recruiters, if that hasn't even become higher, that number, start with looking at your CV. That's also why it's so important to not just have a generic CV that has everything in there. You need to have one that's motivated to that specific position, and then it needs to be very, very specific, like, and focused to the role, to the position that you're applying for, to the company that you're applying for. That also means that, again, don't write everything you did in your past job, because it's not relevant. And when you do write what you did in the last job, it's not about, I did this most in my last job, so that goes on top, and then this, based on how much you did it in your old job. What you need to do is you need to list them based on how relevant it is for the job you're applying for. So this is not about saying, hey, I did this 90% of the time, so that of course goes first. No, but if the thing you did 10% of the time is more important, then you start with that. Because the whole idea with your CV is to show them why you would be a great candidate, right? And you do that by showing them that you actually know how to do the job that they're looking for someone to do. So start by telling them the relevant things. And Another thing, when we're talking about like not overloading your CV with information, it's also about figuring out how do you make them see the right things, like the relevant things. And that is, you can bold out different words. So for example, in Denmark, we often start the CV after you have your information, like your name, your photo, these things, contact information. You'd have a profile text, which is like 5 to 8 lines. That's a bit like, I don't know, a teaser text about like, why should they hire you, kind of thing. Your motivation, the match, like, why are you interested in this position? In that teaser text, you can, or profile text, or whatever you want to call it, you can bold out words that you want them to focus on. So that is words that are, or skills that are important to you, but definitely also important to them. So what is it that they're looking for? They're looking for someone who does SEO, or they're looking for someone who does project management, or who knows, I don't know, whatever technique it is. Then you of course write, because I'm guessing you have that experience, you write about that, and you write about the motivation, the experience you have, and then you bold out that specific thing right there. Because again, we want to draw their attention to the things that are interesting and that matter. And remember, when we're talking about that, and this is where the whole gluttony or overloading your CV also comes in, that we're talking about what matters to them. We're not talking about what matters to you, because it doesn't matter what matters. It doesn't matter what matters to you until you've convinced them that you know what matters to them and what's valuable for them. So when you write your CV, when you write your messages or your material, it's always with the thought of like, what is relevant for them to know. For example, when I'm doing this video here, I'm trying to talk to you about what would be relevant for you in your job search, right? It's not about what's relevant for me. Well, one, because I'm not a job seeker, but it's like, what is relevant for you guys? And when we look at that in the other way, from you guys' perspective, so when you're job searching, what's relevant in your background, in what you can do for the company? How can you create value for them, with them? And that is what you want to focus on. That is also why all the other things do not matter as much. And I'm not saying leave everything else out. I'm just saying be selective with the things you focus on. And of course, if you've had a job, let's say that you, from, I don't know, 2018 to 2020, had a job that is not super relevant for what you would be doing in the job you're applying for now. You don't leave it out, because that's going to give you a gap in your CV. That doesn't look good either. But what you can do is instead, just write you had that job, write the title, the company, and when you were there. You don't need to do a lot of explanation if it's not relevant at all. However, there's a lot of times always a little bit, so you can maybe use like one bullet or something about what you did, because that a lot of the time there's something there, right? But the whole thing about like really focusing in on the value you can give is, and I know I talk about this in so many of my videos, but it's because it's so important. Because again, the company doesn't care about you until you've shown them what is the value you can actually bring them. And then we can start talking about you, right? When you've shown them that you can actually bring them value and bring them something they need, then we can start talking about, okay, because that's when the interview comes, right? So that's when it's like, okay, so now it's your time to show them who you are, and not just how you can. We're still talking about how you can create value, but we're this step closer where they also want to learn about you when we get to the interview stage. Hope that makes that makes sense. So this was day 6 of the Seven Sins series here on my channel. It was day 31 of my 30-day live challenge. But all of a sudden I could not go live because of these seven sins, right? So tomorrow we're talking about the seventh sin, which is lust, and it's not going to be anything dirty. It's about chasing shiny objects in your job search. So that is what the focus is going to be on tomorrow. So I hope you'll join. Again, if you have any questions about your job search, anything about any of the things I have talked about in today's video, or anything else job search related in Denmark, feel free to write a comment, and I'll do my best to answer. Also, if you are looking for jobs in Denmark and you have an academic degree, looking for jobs at an academic level, not necessarily in academia, but you have a bachelor's degree or above, then you can reach out to me and we can see if I'm the right person to speak with you. So thank you so much for following along today. Let's see, you're new. Hi Marcus. Hi Yo. Can you say hi Sophia? Yeah, so thank you so much guys for being here today, for the likes, for the comments. I really appreciate it. Have an amazing rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow.